Hello everyone, it's not Tuesday, but guess what I got? I mean, you can probably tell from the title, but I got my first set of Ohuhu markers. Just about every art channel I watch here on YouTube praises these markers, and on camera they seem to work so well. And it's not that I don't believe other creators. Trust me, I believe them, otherwise I wouldn't have spent what little money I have on these. 'Cause I'm poor. Yay. But there's a difference between believing and seeing on camera and actually playing with and testing and seeing the results in person. No matter how good your camera is, there's always going to be a difference. And while I can't get rid of that difference with a video filmed from my phone, at least I can test out another one of their sets that I don't see much about. And can I just say this case is really well made? Like, I know it's just a canvas bag, but it feels so sturdy. There's no tears in it anywhere, no frays by the zipper, it is solid. And I just bought one big case for all my markers the other day, so, well, I guess this will work as a travel case. Anyway, this is the 24 marker skin tone set. Just look at them. Wow. Beautiful. Mwah. And I see it came with the sheet protector to prevent bleeding onto multiple pages if you plan to use these markers on thinner paper or inside a sketchbook, so neat. There's also a little swatch card included, which is made of a nice thick paper, and honestly, nice of them to include that rather than a pre-printed swatch card, so I'll be filling that out in a minute. There was also a rather long folded up informational sheet about the brand and the markers themselves, which was interesting. It finally cleared up the mystery for me about the name of the brand. Apparently, it's inspired by the island of Oahu in Hawaii. So, yeah, the more you know. Anyway, the markers. Generally, if I'm going to buy sets, I try to get more specialized sets, like skin tones or earth tones, etc., because sets that just include a little bit of every color tend to favor certain colors over others, even if they're not trying to. Or they just missed colors that I wish they had, like skin tones. And I haven't gotten myself a set that was solely for skin tones yet, so when I saw that Ohuhu had an affordable set, I went for it. My main concern going into this is that the skin tones are going to be unbalanced. The pictures online showed a lot of these colors tipping more towards the lighter side, which I really hope isn't the case. I have several of my own non-white characters that I want to be able to create complete illustrations for, and I really need to be able to have a good variety of colors that can make different skin tones. So today I'm going to test these colors on 2 different skin tones and give you my thoughts on them. I haven't sought out any videos about this specific set so that I don't have any preconceived notions going into this. So actually, gotta swatch them first. Hold on. Let's organize them. There we go. All organized. I organized by their own color code, by the way, which is why this may not make sense upon initial viewing. I've heard this about their other sets, that their color coding isn't the greatest and it seems to hop around a lot, so I wasn't surprised when this happened with the skin tone set as well. But as you can see in the pan over, despite the awkward lighting, you can tell that the colors don't really flow nicely when you go by their color code. So I'll be as quick as I can with the swatch sheet while still showing me swatching them so that you can see how they lay down and how they seem to organize their colors compared to the color code, because they didn't organize the swatch card by their own color code. No, that would be too simple. But at least they provided a labeled swatch card, so I can't really complain. And the first color was not exactly what I would consider in the realm of skin tone, seeing as it was a pretty vibrant orange. But I withheld judgment for the moment because I had 23 more markers to go. And a colorless blender, but that isn't exactly a marker you can swatch, so yeah. Some of the colors on their card were grouped together in some logical sense, but it was still a bit all over the place. Even on the swatch card, it didn't seem to be in any logical order. The darker colors were generally at the top and the lighter ones were generally at the bottom, but there were some outliers. And maybe, I don't know, they were trying to create like an interesting color story by doing them out of order, like a makeup palette, but I think I'd prefer my art supplies to be in a gradient. That's just me. The other thing to note, and this is really for all markers, they will look differently first going down than they will after they dry. I looked at the swatch sheet after filming this video when the colors had completely dried, and I can tell there's a difference. That being said, there are a few colors here that I think could have been exchanged for slightly different colors. The darker ones were all fairly different from each other, which was nice to see, though I still think there could have been more of them. They also went down a bit differently than the other ones. As you can see, they sort of feathered as they dried, which is something to be aware of when coloring, but I'm hoping it's partially the paper's fault, but we'll see about that later. Now, the lighter colors, there are like 3 pale colors that look exactly the same, especially the warm gray, which doesn't look gray at all, and the pastel peach and the barely beige. They're all just a little too similar even after they dried. Some of the pinks were also really similar, but different enough that I think I'm okay with them. I just wish there were more variations in the darker tones. Oh, also, several of the markers did almost bleed through the swatch card. They all definitely ghosted, but I'm used to that, so it's not much of an issue for me. It might be for other people though, so just thought I'd mention it. I then did a swatch page in my sketchbook because I wanted to see if they would act differently, which I've glossed over, but with all of that out of the way, let's actually use them in a drawing. I quickly sketched out the 2 characters off screen because I wanted the bulk of this video to be about the markers. I also didn't want to focus too much on the drawings themselves. I didn't try to make them like perfect, they're just sketches that will work for what I want to do. I'm using Canson mixed media paper, which, in my experience, has worked well with my other markers, so I wanted to use it here for fair comparison. I'm starting with a character of mine that I've mentioned before on my channel a couple times. Her name is Fia, F-I-A-D-H. It's an Irish name because I really like Irish names. It means wild, and I don't know, it's just a name that I've always liked. Her design is based off a D&D character of mine that I play named Esir, E-S-I-R. She has a neutral-toned dark skin with stark white-silver hair and matching silver eyes. For the D&D character Esir, that choice was because she was an Aasimar, a race in D&D that has the blood of Celestials, basically, and a lot of Aasimar in the D&D universe can have silver hair as well as white or gray eyes that don't have pupils. So Esir had those telltale traits, and I like them a lot, so I've altered it a bit for Fia in that her eyes are a light gray-green. In this sketch, I don't add in the black for her pupils because it's a little too small to put the detail in without crowding the space, but she does have normal pupils, I promise. I had her keep the natural silver-white hair though, because I think the stark contrast is gorgeous. So, about the skin tone, which is, the point of the video. I used the colors Natural Oak as the base color, Pale Mauve, whatever, for her cheeks and other high points, and Burnt Sienna for the shadows. Since this is stylized and not realism, I wasn't going to try and add in all the various undertones. I just wanted to see if I could get roughly the same colors and blends that I envisioned her having, and I think I can. I definitely ran into the problem that since I didn't have any line work down yet, the markers looked a little messy, but the fine liner I used later does help that out a little bit. Not a lot, because I think the colors I chose for a sketch this small were a little dark. And what I mean by that is that it's harder to find the details in a smaller piece with darker colors. So perhaps I should have used a lighter color, but since the set is a little limited when it comes to the darker colors, I was going to have a bit of trouble doing that. So I stuck with what I had already and colored in the rest of the character. I used some of my other markers from other brands for this in order to get the right colors, mostly some grays and blues, and one color called Rouge that I used for the lips. They all worked together fine, though the gray marker nibs need to be cleaned or replaced or flipped because they're fuzzy and it's hard to get clean lines with them. I also was having a hard time coloring the hair because of this, so her hair leaves something to be desired, but like I said, this video is about the skin tones. So I made peace with what I was able to do and fix and left it at that. In the finished picture here, I swatched out all the colors I used for Fia. As you can tell, the fine liner is harder to see in certain areas. I know I mentioned that this sketch was small, but to give you some perspective, this sketch is about the size of my palm. So like a 3-inch square max, if that helps. As I practice drawing this character some more, I'll definitely be drawing her at a larger scale to see what other ways I can create her skin tone, but overall, for the markers themselves, I think they worked pretty well. There's a bit of a waxy separation happening where some of the blending was overdone, but I learned later that this happens more easily when coloring darker skin tones, which I will talk a bit more about later. For now, let's try the next character. This character's name is Tilly, Tilly. I'm not going to use the Irish spelling because when I picked the name, I was not thinking about it in terms of meaning. I just picked it because I liked how it sounded. The Irish word it stems from, Tilly, means like to earn something, usually involving money, but I think it can be used in other senses as well. If I use the definition very loosely, I suppose it could work for her character, but that wasn't the reason I picked the name. But anyway, spiel aside, Tilly is pretty much on the other end of the skin tone variation, so I thought she would be a good representation for all the lighter markers in this set. The markers I used are Honey, Pastel Peach, or barely beige, they look basically the same and I don't remember, Morin, and Pale Mauve. Mauve. I think the Pale Mauve was one color too many though, because it feathered out and granulated like watercolor, which is a little weird. But I can safely say that was user error. It wasn't the marker's fault, it was mine. I didn't wait for the colors to dry before adding on the more intense shadows. And honestly, the sketch didn't need that much more color and contrast. So yeah, my bad. Like with Fia's sketch, this one is also very small and I didn't want to muddy the details. Did I end up muddying them anyway? Yeah, a little bit, but that's a learning curve that I am currently on, and I'm sure I'll figure it out as I continue to use these markers. This sketch also went through that same ugly phase that the other one did. You know, the stage where there's a bunch of color plopped down and no line work to contain it all. But I do it this way because the lighter colors especially tend to pull apart at the ink if the ink isn't completely dry or resistant. And because I didn't want to chance that, I didn't do any line work until I was more or less done with the blending. As for the hair, I just took some colors from my other sets to give her a head of vibrant red hair. And I still need to figure out how to do that in a better way too. But again, that's not what this video is about. After adding in all the line work, I began to feel a lot better about this sketch. I think the blush was blended a bit too harshly and the neckline is a bit fuzzy, but otherwise I really like how it came out. I mean, the sketch itself is like meh, but the coloring was what I wanted to focus on. I swatched the colors I used on the right, and at the end of the day, I'd say these markers did their job, and that job was a good one. So here are the two sort of side by side for some comparison. The paper I used is huge, which probably doesn't help make these tiny sketches look any bigger, but that's besides the point. I think that... Oh, hold on. I forgot to finish up Tilly's lips. I used the same rouge color I used on Fia. Okay, there. Now, wait. I forgot to shade her eyes. Just now I'm done. And now I'm going to interject just one more time because of something I mentioned earlier. I had said that I learned after filming that coloring darker skin with markers is a bit trickier, and so I watched someone's video on coloring darker skin tones and tried it out myself. Ignore the third tiny head there. I was trying something out before I looked up a tutorial, but it didn't work. What I did want to show, though, was the study I did after watching the tutorial, which I will link down below for those who are interested. I think this study shows off the markers a little bit better, having to use a lot more of them to create a realistic portrait. I used about 10 different colors from this set, which is a lot, but hey, it shows that darker skin tones are more than easily accomplished with this set, and I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, overall, I think these markers are really, really good. Pretty on par with my other markers like the Spectrum Noir and even Copics. Copics. Some of the lighter colors are a bit too close to each other, but in the end, they do still have a fairly good spectrum that can create any skin tone as long as you understand how to use and layer these correctly. I definitely think they're more than worth the price at which they're listed, and if you want to give them a shot, I say go for it. So that's all I have for today. I had a lot of fun using these, and I can't wait to keep creating with them. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed this too, and leave a comment below telling me what you thought about these. I try to update every Tuesday-ish and Friday-ish, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already so that you can catch my videos when they're posted. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!